Good evening. I want to welcome everybody to the November 19th, 2018 meeting of the Jersey Village City Council. Madam Secretary, quorum is present.
Yes.
Very good. We'll move to item B of this evening's agenda, the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Tonight's pledge and prayer will be by Pastor Avery Lamel, Champion Forest Baptist Church of Jersey Village. Pastor?
Thank you, Mayor. Let us pray. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for the blessings in which we receive from your hand. As all of us have existed under the umbrella of your grace, we pay honor and respect to your holiness, thanking you for this day in which you've made. And do ask that you would endow this council with your wisdom, that they might, Father, be guided by your hand for the betterment of your people, for this blessed city of Jersey Village, that you continue to bless us and endow us, dear Father, that we might radiate your glory in all that we do, and that all the neighbors, all the citizens would be blessed, is our prayer. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Very good. Thank you, Pastor. We're going to move into item C on our agenda this evening, presentations. Presentation of Employee of the Month, City Manager Austin Blease.
Mayor, councilors, and citizens of Jersey Village, tonight it is my honor to present the Employee of the Month for November 2018 to Detective Sergeant Devin Limerick. Over the past year, Sergeant Limerick has worked on a very complex fraud case which resulted in 17 criminal charges being filed. This case required massive amounts of data collection as well as tracking down suspects that were not even citizens with known identification. He was able to complete this investigation while maintaining the property and evidence room as well as working on the other items for the CID division. In all, over 20 vehicles were stolen in fraudulent transactions, and Sergeant Limerick was even able to recover some of those stolen vehicles. You might have read about that in the news over the last few days. So these actions are not out of the ordinary for Sergeant Limerick. He has always been a fantastic employee who was truly a public servant in all regards. This one case is only a small sample of the dedication he has demonstrated for our city. Sergeant Limerick also takes time to explain cases to younger officers. He's often here after work hours helping others work on cases from patrol. He's taken on a very positive role while mentoring others in our agency, and we are definitely a better agency for having him here. So Detective Limerick, if you'd come forward, congratulations on being Employee of the Month.
Congratulations again, Sergeant Limerick, and that'll actually move us into item D, the juvenile curfew public hearing and related items. I'll now call to order the second public hearing on the City of Jersey Village Juvenile Curfew Ordinance. Everyone desiring to speak at this hearing should complete a public hearing comment card, if they have not already done so, and present the card to the City Secretary. Each speaker shall give his name and address so we have a proper record of this hearing. Our rules allow you 5 minutes to present your information. I would, however, encourage each speaker to be as brief and to the point as possible. The purpose of this second public hearing is to give all interested parties the right to appear and be heard on the need to continue the City of Jersey Village's juvenile curfew ordinance. Council has heretofore conducted a review of the ordinance and conducted the first public hearing on October 15, 2018. Chief Eric Forrester will give a short presentation concerning the City of Jersey Village juvenile curfew ordinance's effects on the community and the problems ordinances was intended to remedy. Chief?
Mayor, Council, we're going to do just a few slides I hope will clear things up a little bit from last time. The few questions that I garnered from last time were how many contacts we have and what time of day that impacted the curfews. So if you look going on your screen from left to right is our juvenile CAD entries. These are the amount of contacts that we have with juveniles. from 2009 on the left to 2018 on the right. As you can see, the increase is pretty staggering. That doesn't mean they're breaking the law. That just means that these are contacts that we have with juveniles that end up in our CAD system. They're either a victim of a crime, they're a suspect of a crime, or they've been arrested or ticketed. So you can see that we're handling a lot more juveniles lately. The next question was how many contacts we make during juvenile curfew hours. Again, starting on the left, 2009, and ending on the right, which is 2018. That's a pretty big increase in the amount of contacts made with juveniles during curfew hours. Keep that number 110 in mind as we move forward. Second question was how many contacts were made with ended up in curfew citations. 2015-16 is 41, 2016-17 is 34, 2017-18 is 23. So you can see we're contacting a lot more juveniles, but we're writing fewer tickets. That was a big question, was that you're contacting these people and you're issuing a lot of citations. That's not the case, but we are contacting more. Citations issued versus the nighttime curfew. As you can see, there are very few. And the reason why there are very few nighttime curfew tickets is because there are a lot more exceptions to that. The juveniles that we're contacting, if you go back to the 110 amount, we're still contacting a lot of these, but they all have a good excuse. They're coming from work, they're coming from a school function, whatever the case may be, family emergencies, whatever. So that led me to, and I apologize, no matter what we did to contrast, we couldn't change this. One of the things I keep hearing is, well, let's do away with the nighttime curfew or daytime curfew and keep the night. The numbers indicate we need the daytime curfew, not the nighttime curfew. Those are the citations issued. So in 2017-18, we wrote 23 citations during the day, 6 at night. So that means 23 of the 110 did not have a sufficient reason to be out during the day. 2016, it was 34. 2015 was 41. So I hope that shows you the difference in the need of the daytime curfew versus the nighttime curfew. I don't believe I did a well enough job last time explaining that, why that's so important to us. Juvenile traffic stops. 2015 was 136, 2016 205, 2017-18 is 264. So as you can see, there is a large amount of juvenile contacts in Jersey Village. And what you're going to hear is you're going to hear people talk about studies about this and studies about that. Those studies are not Jersey Village, Texas. These numbers are from Jersey Village, Texas. That's what's very important, and that's why we have to look at our numbers. Last slide is one of the most important. The amount of juvenile arrests, 2015 was 16 total, 16-17 was 18 total, last year was 31 total. I think there's a story in the numbers, and the numbers are we need the curfew. Thank you very much.
All right, any questions for Chief from council?
Chief, I can appreciate that there's a lot more juvenile contacts. In fact, I'd say there's probably been a lot more contacts with people in general. JVPD has issued a lot more citations, so it's only to be expected that there would be, just as there's been an uptick in the total number of citations, you're probably going to capture within that a proportionate amount of juveniles. How many of those contacts how many of those stops were developed based on probable cause that existed solely due to the fact that you had the juvenile curfew ordinance?
We do not have that number specifically available. I know it's statistically it's valid, and a majority of those probably came off of traffic stops. But I know many, many good arrests have also come because that is our probable cause. I know because I've made a few of those myself. So it is indicative of more contacts with juveniles in our area.
And so what you're saying is the majority of those stops would have happened whether we had the ordinance in place or not?
Yes and no.
You may have to explain there, because if the majority of them occurred as a result of probable cause generated by some offense other than the ordinance, then certainly the stop would have been legal whether the ordinance existed or not.
It's all supposition at this point. It's all anecdotal. We don't know. We don't have any way to break those down.
In the chief's defense, the way that recording happens and data's taken in, there's just no way to answer that question.
No, I get it. I just I'll bring up my point about that later.
Part of the entries that I see, there was 264 traffic stops of juveniles and 269 total entries in CAD of juveniles. Are traffic stops of juveniles part of that CAD entry?
Only if they're run as a driver or receive a citation.
Okay.
Just to be clear, and I know this is being repetitive, but you do see that the curfew is a necessary tool in your toolkit for curbing crime?
I believe it is a leg of a very important element, yes. Do I think we're going to flounder without it? No, I do not. But in this day and age of increased contacts with juveniles, no matter how we get to that point, we're still the same size department as we were before, and I think it benefits us to use what tools that we have available to combat crime.
If I may, Chief, I know that obviously in law enforcement you want as many tools available as possible, and I get that, and I would never blame you for wanting to seek as many tools as possible. If you did not have the juvenile curfew ordinance, do you believe that you have enough tools otherwise at your disposal to maintain our current level of safety in the community? Obviously understanding there may be some slight variation, but as a general supposition, would you say crime would probably not substantially increase?
You're an attorney. That's a great question. I would love to sit here and tell you if we do the ordinance, this is going to happen. If we don't do the ordinance, this is not going to happen. I have no way of knowing. I believe I've expressed to council numerous times, and when we added the additional person at nights, I believe we're at a point of saturation with our department where we're kind of keeping our head above water, but it's precarious. We're running into big city problems with a small town police force. So just be aware of that and be cognizant, but I can't give you an answer what's going to happen.
So if we got you a few more officers, that could potentially make it a wash.
Well, I don't want to look like I'm blackmailing you either. So.
Oh, no, this is a very legitimate question.
It's just a very useful tool, and I can't tell you what's going to happen either way. It's great to have it. I don't see a double-digit increase if we don't. So I think that answers your question.
Councilmember Warren, I would like to add that the effect of the ordinance could also have a deterrent factor, and that is something you can't ascertain, and the chief wouldn't, in terms of what he's describing as his tools, the ordinance itself is a tool for deterrence.
Sure, I understand.
Chief, do we know, you had 31 citations issued for juvenile curfew violations. Do we know what the resolution of those are?
I inquired about them, and they have to manually go back and pull each one. Those are not in the PD side. That's all handled over through courts. We just transitioned to new software, or transitioning to new software to make that a little bit easier to track, but we have no way of knowing right now.
If a juvenile receives a curfew violation, is that on the same level as a traffic citation?
It's a little less, but yes,
A little
equivalency.
A little less than a traffic citation. Okay. One of the, just as a comment, I try to look for a rationale on how to evaluate the curfew, and I choose to look at it as a time and place element. For example, if there's a shopping center in Jersey Village and there's a car with a person in that car at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that's not unusual. If it's 3 a.m., person in the car, same situation, exact same circumstance, but there's a time element to that, and a place. That person does not belong in that environment at that time of night, under most circumstances. I would venture to say that a police officer would be more likely to investigate a car with a person sitting in it at 3 a.m. than they were at 3 p.m. So I choose to use that rationale when looking at the juvenile curfew. A juvenile at 11 a.m., where they should be in school, is more unusual than a juvenile at 7 p.m. walking the street. So in terms of how I am going to evaluate this, it's time and place criteria. So just a matter of note.
For me, I mean, if you look at this day versus night curfew violations chart, 98 over the last 3 years, there's basically been 98 juveniles walking around the streets of Jersey Village with no good reason enough to avoid a citation. Were all 98 of those kids are they bad kids? Probably not. Are they all gonna commit a crime? Probably not. But all our officers did was initiate contact. And that's what this tool did, was to ask them, hey, where are you? Where are you going? Why aren't you in school? And so I feel like this is simply a valuable tool that just helps our small town with 3,400 kids that show up every single day in and out, mitigate, whether it mitigates 1 crime or 10 crimes. I think that's a valuable tool.
I'm not going to talk on this a whole lot. And I fully support the police department. I don't claim to have all the experience the chief does. This is a tool that I don't think needs to be there, because of the 110 stopped, 79% of them were let go without a citation. They met an exemption. Those are the kids that I think they shouldn't have had to have been stopped. Whole reason I bring it up. Both major political parties have it in their platform to get rid of these. There's lots of studies, both in just singular cities, but also national studies that went over tons of cities, that you can say, yes, they weren't for Jersey Village, but they're all showing that these curfews are not meeting their goals. And there's lots of tools available. And I would agree, it's about a 1% change, not 1%, single digit change that you're going to see. Do I want to see that change? Absolutely not. Do I think this change is worth it just from the fact that I think juveniles shouldn't be deprived of their right to walk around? I'm willing to give that up. Other people may not. That's it. That's about all I'm going to say on the issue.
No, he answered my questions. He says he needs the tool. That's what I'm thinking is the important issue here. We have a very good police chief. We do not have problems with our police officers and their dealings with the juveniles. I'm sorry?
Never said they did.
Okay, I know. As long as the standards in our police department are upheld and the interaction that they have with the juveniles are showing the respect that people deserve, then I'm going to trust our police chief.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and move into public hearing comments. I've got several public hearing comment cards. The first one I have is John Bockham.
All right, hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is John Bockham. I live at 15325 Chichester Lane. Speaking today to encourage you to reject the reauthorization of the juvenile curfew ordinance. If you're not aware, juvenile curfew ordinances are strongly opposed by the Republican and Democratic Party of Texas platforms, the American Civil Liberties Union, and the conservative-leaning Texas Public Policy Foundation's Right on Crime campaign. Criticism of our juvenile ordinance, curfew ordinance is not a partisan issue, and I'm not here today to disparage the chief or any of his staff. I know y'all provide excellent services. I would be speaking against these ordinances in any city that I lived in because I believe them to be unjust. Youth in Jersey Village should not be subject to pretextual stops for status offenses that are only illegal because of the kid's status as a minor. This raises a complex and undecided argument on the constitutionality of the curfew laws in general. The chief mentioned the Fifth Circuit ruling. There have been other rulings in other districts that have said these rulings are in fact unconstitutional because they're not narrowly tailored enough. Our officers should make stops based on suspicious activity or a criminal act, not just stopping by judging someone's age. Youth are not predisposed to commit crime and should not be feared for simply being in public during curfew hours. At a time when the state of Texas is moving away from the overcriminalization of youth, Jersey Village sadly seems to be moving in the opposite direction. In 2016, the Campbell Collaboration, a nonprofit that synthesizes research studies for policymakers, did a systemic review of research literature on juvenile curfews programs. They examined over 7,000 studies and synthesized the most 12 rigorous studies. The report stated, evidence suggests that juvenile curfews are ineffective at reducing crime and victimization. While that might not have focused on data in Jersey Village, it focused on a broad enough, wide enough cast of net that Jersey Village would have to be an amazing anomaly outlier for it also to prove that it's not an ineffective solution here in Jersey Village. Another study previous to that was published by the National Criminal Justice Reference Service in 2003 found that empirical studies of the impact of juvenile curfew laws failed to support the argument that curfews reduce crime and juvenile victimization. We can rely on emotional reactions, or we can rely on the data showing this policy is not needed. The reality is that juvenile crime rates are decreasing across the country and are currently at all-time lows. It does not seem like the burden of proof has been met to extend the ordinance based on the reduction in juvenile crime or juvenile victimization. While the state of Texas has decriminalized truancy, our ordinance allows for a minor to be charged with a Class C misdemeanor, which introduces these minors to the criminal justice system. These cases are heard in adult court, not juvenile court, with no guaranteed right to counsel, and many times the minors are forced to pay fines and fees that they or their families simply cannot afford. Additional collateral consequences of a Class C misdemeanor conviction may compromise college, employment, housing, and military prospects. Research and common sense confirm that criminalization of youth, particularly for low-level offenses, is harmful. Truancy issues, including relatively minor behavior like leaving campus to eat lunch, should be corrected through our educational system, not through our criminal justice system. Studies have shown that early court involvement increases kids' risk of engaging in future delinquent behaviors and moving deeper into the criminal justice system. This ordinance criminalizes kids for behaviors that pose little to no risk for public safety. I urge the City Council to stop the criminalization of youth by ending the juvenile curfew ordinance. And I just will touch that, as I mentioned, this is not to disparage the police department. I believe that the chief and his officers have the tools, the training, and the knowledge to effectively create probable cause if they think there is a crime being committed, has been committed, or about to be committed. This tool simply isn't needed, in my opinion. Thank you.
Fred Zehay.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for the opportunity. I'm Fred Zehay, 8409 Hawaii Lane. I have already communicated to all of you my thoughts on the curfew. I am in favor of renewing the curfew. Again, I see this, and the words have already been spoken. I'm not going to reiterate what I've said. You guys have seen. I've also spoken with several of you about it as well as the chief. I do see it as a useful tool that can be helpful. I haven't seen, and I think the evidence is there has been no abuse. I see no great damage done by a youth being asked by a policeman what you're out and about. I think they do it in a good professional manner. The other words that the city attorney took is a deterrent. Having raised two kids, And I would ask you all to think about in your backgrounds, maybe you've raised kids, teenage kids, maybe you're about to, or maybe you can think back to your own teenage years, but there's nothing like a good deterrent to prevent you from taking that next step, doing something that maybe somebody else thought was really funny, and get yourself into a bind. So I see the curfew as a good deterrent to preventing future problems. And again, I just don't see any damage. If you're about to do something and you get stopped, maybe it's a good thing that you had that maybe you had that opportunity to speak to a policeman. If you're out there minding your own business, all you're going to do is maybe get to know a policeman a little bit better. So I see no problem at all with renewing it, and I would encourage you to. Thank you.
Susan Edwards. Susan Edwards.
Thank you for letting me speak. I'm Susan Edwards, 16001 Jersey Drive. I want to echo everything that Fred Zehe just said. I've spoken to most of you and to Chief Forrester about this curfew ordinance. I am in favor of it. As a longtime resident of Jersey Village, and knowing that most people who live here in Jersey Village have chosen to live here in Jersey Village because of our police department and fire department, I just really don't understand why people would want to take this tool away from our police department. I feel like most of us are raising our children to respect our policemen. I don't understand why we feel like our children are going to be afraid if a policeman approaches them and asks them where they're going or why they're out. That just baffles me. I've raised 2 children here in Jersey Village, and now I have 2 grandchildren who are here in the village quite often. In fact, I have 1 grandson at home right now that we feel quite comfortable leaving him at home alone right now while we're up here at this city council meeting. He is a 7th grader, and I think he's old enough to be at home alone while we're here, because we do live in a safe community. Anyway, like I said, my husband and I are in favor of this curfew. I hope that it gets voted in again. Thank you.
Nancy Yetter, did you want to speak in this one too? Okay.
Just kind of threw me when they said 2. My name's Nancy Yetter. I live at 16121 Capri Drive. Last month at the meeting, Mr. Singleton made a comment about leaving the truancy issues to the truant officers for the school district. And it got me to thinking. I wondered how many truant officers there were in Cy-Fair and what kind of coverage territory they had or how it operated. So I called the school district and was sent to Student Services Department, and a very knowledgeable woman who I think has been there a long time because she answered all of my questions, named Nora Coretta, told me that we do not have truant officers. We have 5 attendance officers, and they are office personnel. They do not go out in the field. They do not stop children or anything like that. When attendance records show that a child has excessive absences or no excuse being turned in for their absences, then they get involved and contact the parent, try and find out what's going on, things like that. The job of what I think a lot of people think of as truancy, or looking for kids or stopping kids or talking to them out in public, falls to the Cy-Fair Police Department. And you know, each campus has well, I say each campus. I don't know about the elementary schools. The Jersey Village has a police officer located on campus, and it would be his job. So I don't see where that helps us much in the neighborhood. He is located on campus and might try and stop them or see a lot of coming and going, but he's not out and about in our neighborhood looking for students and asking them what they're doing and things like that. So anyway, that was my information from Nora Coretta with Cy-Fair School District. And the whole district has 5 attendance officers. I thought that was like, whoa, not much good. Anyway, thank you.
Officer Limerick.
Thank you for letting me speak. In addition to working for the City of Jersey Village, I'm speaking today as a citizen. I also live here in the city. And while I can't claim I didn't help Chief with any of the research on this or know what every officer does or the types of stops and things that go on, I know that anytime you give a governmental agency or police power, there's a concern about it being used in a bad way or abused. I can tell you a couple cases that I can give you a brief description of where it was used in the past couple months that came to my mind, and I think is probably the way we would hope it would be used. In one scenario, we had a 17-year-old adult and a juvenile that were riding bicycles, and there was a PC. Kids riding bicycle down the street is not against the law. However, we had a nighttime curfew. They were stopped and questioned, and it ended up that they were going out and doing burglaries. They'd actually burglarized several vehicles and stolen firearms out of vehicles outside the City of Jersey Village in Harris County. And then they had just driven into Jersey Village, and officers came into contact with them. Based off of that, the juvenile ended up getting his charge dropped. The adult's, I think, still pending. Another case was a nighttime stop. It was an adult driver. Normally, if you don't have any reason to speak to the passenger, you don't identify the passenger or speak to them concerning a traffic stop. It was a regular traffic stop, but it appeared to be juvenile, and they spoke to that juvenile. Led to the another group of juveniles approached them, and it led to the discovery that they were staying in a local motel hotel room here. And a further investigation led to the discovery that this was a gang of young men that had been for some months burglarizing vehicles, and there was a recovery of about, I believe, 8 or 9 firearms that were stolen out of that motel room, many of which I returned in my capacity as a evidence and property room, and some computers and other items. So I just wanted to give you some examples of how it would be used or was useful in certain scenarios, in certain situations. I can't speak to, I can only speak to myself, and I'm not on patrol anymore. You know, I don't know how other officers would use it, and it's not my position to say if it's right or wrong for the city. I just thought I would at least give that sort of perspective of how I know it has been used. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, that's all the comment cards that I have. So seeing that there's no one else desiring to speak on, did you want to talk during the public hearing, or did you want to talk during general citizen comments, Marilee? So, seeing that there's no one else desiring to speak, I'll now close the second public hearing on the City of Jersey Village Juvenile Curfew Ordinance. Moving to item 2, consider ordinance number 2018-23, continuing in effect ordinance number 1995-20, adopted on November 20th, 1995, and codified as Chapter 42, Article 3, Division 3, entitled Curfew, reflecting compliance with all requirements of state law and reaffirming the need to continue the curfew ordinance and providing a penalty of an amount not less than $50, no more than $500 for each day of violation of any provision hereof, making certain findings, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent or conflicting herewith, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. Chief Eric Forrester.
Mayor, Council, I believe we've heard arguments on both sides, and valid and well taken. But again, I would just ask council to consider and vote your heart on this one.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Looking for some discussion on ordinance number 2018-23.
A couple of comments I found kind of peculiar. It says that, there were some comments that both the Republican and Democratic platforms are against juvenile curfews, yet it's still in place. So if that's truly something they agree on, then perhaps it can be addressed at the state or federal level. So we can certainly wait for that. As far as being unconstitutional, that too I think will work its way through the courts, and will, if it is unconstitutional, we'll certainly get that feedback. But until then, to all the comments we heard, I think it's a useful tool. I think it puts the time in place, criteria in place to enforce laws and to prevent crime. So in my opinion, I think it's a useful tool and one that should stay in place until something changes.
Pertaining to the constitutionality, I've already had a discussion with the chief, and apparently our version of the curfew, the juvenile curfew ordinance, is already passed by the Fifth Circuit and been approved.
I would disagree with that a little bit. First of all, the Fifth Circuit decision you're referring to, and you're right, almost every city, and I don't blame them, almost every city virtually copied word for word the Dallas ordinance that, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, Qutub versus Strauss, and that decision that was decided upon. Now, the problem with that is, and I apologize if this gets too far into the weeds, typically under a strict scrutiny analysis, in that case, the question was whether or not there was an equal protection of the application of laws upon youth compared to adults. And the court found that there was a question regarding a fundamental right, the right to free movement. It's a right we all enjoy today. If one of us goes out and decides that we want to go get Whataburger at 1 a.m., all of us as adults have the right to do that. If you're in Jersey Village and if you are under the age of 17 and you decide you want to go out and get Whataburger at 1 a.m., you do not have a right to do that under ordinance. And that ultimately is the question that was put before the court, is whether or not that unequal application of law was constitutional. Now, in order to be able to survive that sort of challenge, it is subject to strict scrutiny, which means that the city had to show that they were trying to achieve a compelling government interest and doing so in the most narrowly tailored way possible, and that there were no reasonable alternatives to that particular ordinance. And that typically is a fact-based, case-by-case instance. In other words, just because Dallas has a compelling government interest and that this is the only way to achieve it, does not mean that Jersey Village has a compelling government interest and that exact ordinance is the only way to achieve it. So if we think that there's some sort of safe harbor that exists in this case, I'm sorry, but we're fooling ourselves. That's just not the case. Now, that being said, I think that fundamentally, let's set aside sort of the legal speak here for a moment. I have a serious concern with this for a few reasons. Number one, if we are talking about someone's fundamental rights, is just the fact that an ordinance is a useful tool, one of many, is that the threshold that we want to use to affect someone's fundamental rights? This decision everyone's here citing in justification of this says that it is a fundamental right. So that's not what's at dispute here. It's just a question of whether or not our infringement of that fundamental right is justified. And so if our new standard is whether it's a useful tool, I'm really afraid, because constitutional rights exist not because we all get together and decide this is a good thing. They exist because a majority of people may get together and decide something's a good thing that's a very bad thing for a minority of people. And the reason why I'm even more concerned in this instance is we're dealing with a minority of people who are not enfranchised. And I'm not suggesting that children should be able to vote, but it's not like a horde of children can get together and form a pack and decide to run a candidate against us and go to the polls and vote us all out because they don't like what we're doing. The mere political process doesn't work for them in that fashion, and yet they do have constitutional rights. Not in the exact same way all of us do, but they do have some fundamental constitutional rights, and freedom of movement is one of those. And so I think that we have a heightened interest to be very careful with when we choose to exercise this, and should only do so when we need to and when we have no other choice. And that's really what it boils down to with strict scrutiny. It's necessary because there's a serious issue that has to be addressed with it, and we have no other choice. What I've heard today is it's not that necessary because we really don't even have clear statistics on how often it's been used. We also have heard that it sounds like there's some other options that we haven't considered. I'm more than happy to hire a couple of extra police officers if it means we're not infringing on someone's fundamental rights. And the reason why I'm being so serious about this, Greg mentioned, hey, let's leave it to the courts to decide. And I understand why most political bodies do it. Me standing up here, railing against something that's extremely popular, probably isn't going to go too well over the ballot box. I'm up for election in May. I recognize that difficulty. But this is something that I'm willing to stand up to because it's the right thing. Also because when I took an oath for this office, as all of us did, I swore that I would faithfully execute the duties of this office and that I would, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and of this state. And so again, I think that the reason the state requires us to look at this juvenile ordinance every 3 years is because we need to determine on a fact basis, based on what we know now, whether or not it's necessary. And I think that that's done because of the constitutional issues involved. And if we simply sit up here and say it's a useful tool, well, guess what? If we decide to strip out the age requirement, and let's just make this curfew apply to everyone, regardless of age, I bet that would be a useful tool. Chief could make a ton of arrests by just saying after, curfew hours, anyone caught on the street is subject to being pulled over. You wouldn't have to worry about probable cause ever. You just check the box that says curfew, right? That shouldn't be the standard, and that's why. It's a perfect example why we don't do these things. We dive, and I know a lot of people have said, hey, I get it, the whole legal mumbo-jumbo, I get that you've got all of these things having to do with the Constitution that are important to you. They should be important to all of us, because it's the only thing that allows us to be sitting up here, the only thing that allows you guys to be sitting out here and railing for or against this thing, and for us to discuss whether or not to keep this in place. I'm not going to come back on that. That's all I have to say. I think everyone here kind of has their understanding of their role in this, but I wanted to make sure that people understood why I've been so adamantly against this, because I really do think it's a sensitive issue, and being a tool in a toolbox is not enough.
Yeah, I just want to say that I fully agree with everything you're saying about constitutional rights. And I'm a strong believer that we need to protect what we have in this country. But one of the biggest issues we have going on in this society today is who can own a gun and who can't. And it's the same thing. The safety of the public has to be considered. If you got background checks and they're looking at whether you have past psychological issues or not, as to whether you can own a gun or not, affects public safety. And we have a responsibility to address public safety. But those people with the psychological issues also have constitutional rights. So that's a scale that we have to put the weights on one side or the other all the time. And that's what we're doing in this case.
I bet a gun ban would be a useful tool too, right? Does anyone want to justify it on that basis? Probably not.
All right, I think council's got an idea where we're going to fall on this. I'm calling for a motion on the ordinance.
Mayor, Council, I understand completely both sides of the argument, and I respect that. And I want to say, you and I talked earlier, Gary, about this, and I agree, depends on how we do it. We're cognizant of the issues. We're not heavy-handed with this. We don't want to be heavy-handed with this. We're training for it. It's been in place since I've been here, but we're aware of it. And we're not going to push the boundaries and go into the gray area. And I wanted to be clear with council, we're handling this carefully. And that's very important. That I think that you guys understand that.
And if I may, just one more thing. I agree with you, Chief. My statement, in fact, is, as it should be, this analysis should be enforcement neutral. We should not be asking ourselves how our particular police department with these personnel enforce it, because, and I hope you guys are here for a long time, but at any moment, it could be, for whatever reason, a different group of people, and what they have is not their honor and dedication and commitment and experience. What they have when they leave, which I hope they don't, and someone else comes in, is the ordinance. That's the part we have to affect. And we should be looking at this as if we are completely blind as to who's enforcing it.
I'm kind of going back, Gary. You said that you were voting because he said he needed the tool. And you said that you're strong in the constitutional part of it. But 87 juveniles are stopped and released in order to enforce the need for the 23. Do you find that the data provided, even though we can't get all the real data because it's just not available, you find that this backs up the need for the ordinance?
I'll go back to my comparison to the gun rights and the incident at Sandy Hook. I mean, how many people out there with past mental issues would like to own a gun, and you stop them all, but in so doing, you may have saved all the kids at Sandy Hook.
Looking for a motion on the ordinance.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 2018-23.
I'll second.
There's been a motion second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. I'll move us to item E this evening, citizen comments. Citizens who signed a card and wish to speak to the city council be heard at this time in compliance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Unless the subject matter of the comment is on the agenda, the city staff and city council members are prevented from discussing the subject and may respond only with statements of factual information or existing policy. Citizens are limited to 5 minutes for their comments to city council. John Rosenthal is in attendance this evening. First up.
Thank you, Mayor Ray. And council members, thanks for welcoming me tonight. I don't live in Jersey Village, but I'm going to represent you in Austin next year. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm your new state representative for House District 135. And so I intend to come to these meetings, listen to the council, listen to all of you, and bring your concerns to Austin. It's my job to represent you. And that's all. I just wanted to introduce myself. We're probably going to keep the same office that Gary Elkins uses, but wherever it is, it'll be posted publicly. We'll have regular times that we're there. The idea is for me to be accessible to you and bring your concerns to Austin, so whatever that is. Okay? I'm John Rosenthal. It's nice to meet you all. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Judy Bruner.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak. Tonight, I would like to speak on the subject of compassion. Daniel Webster says that the definition of compassion is sorrow for the sufferings or troubles of others, accompanied by an urge to help. And I have an urge to help. My first urge to help children of Jersey Village popped up about 40 years ago. Even then, it had to do with the safety of our children. If you want to hear about that, call me. The goal at that time was to keep the children on Ecuador and the schools and the children on Solomon safe. Locating the dog park by the footbridge and the Ecuador sidewalks concerns me because of the safety issue. The Ecuador sidewalk is one of the most needed and most used walking sidewalks in our village. The Ecuador sidewalks takes you from one side of the bayou to the other. This footbridge and sidewalk have been the path that leads from the busy public world to the sanctuary for our children. Living on Philippine, I have had the duty of being watched. I have had an Ecuador watch duty for more than 43 years. After crossing the bridge, there is an elementary school, a high school, public parks, a playground for the schools, the splash pad, the swimming pool, the activity center for outdoor activities, football stadium, jogging paths, etc. Do we know how many activities occur in the recreational areas on a regular basis? I have no idea. The Jersey Village students from the north of the bayou walk down to Philippine, and they go down the sidewalks, cross the footbridge, and going over. So do many of the students who live in West Bridge and Willowbridge, and maybe some other subdivisions, I'm not sure. Also, we have students that come across from the east. We have a lot of walkers that come across Beltway 8. And they do the same thing. They walk across the sidewalk on Ecuador and go across the bridge. And there's also senior citizens, bikers, runner using the same bridge. The easy access gives enjoyment and convenience to the entire neighborhood. And I am very hopeful that we can keep our children's sanctuary kid-friendly and family safe. I personally have been stuck on the opposite side of the bridge with two small grandsons. There were unleashed dogs in the middle of Ecuador. One of my boys loves dogs, and the other is scared to death of a dog, no matter what the size. The dog may be fine until he meets my Eddie, my overzealous dog-loving grandson, or Michael, who screams and starts to climb up on me, a 74-year-old grandmother, which is not much fun. Having been a dog owner, I know the unpredictability of a dog's reaction to children's impulsive behavior. I cannot take a chance with my most precious commodities. Your dog may be as precious to you as my grandsons are to me, but neither one of us want an accident. Children are inquisitive, and only by the grace of God, let's hope that one doesn't put their hand in a fence of an unhappy dog. As careful as parents try to be, most parents have more than one child at the park at the same time. How easy is it to get distracted watching more than one child? I know, and you know, that the cost for this dog park is not the issue for changing the location. The cost is so minuscule to what this city spends. I also know that we have intelligent city council members, we have intelligent city leaders in our city that can figure this thing out all by themselves. Please use your compassion to make our decision. Our police chief said something a while ago that I wrote down that I thought was just absolutely...
Hey, Judy, it's time.
Okay.
Got your comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Fanny Messick.
Good evening. I'm glad to see all of you. I used to be very active in city politics, but over the years, due to family issues, I've not kept up with things lately. So when this issue came up, I didn't think much about it until a lot of other people I know has told me about it. I just have some questions. if this dog park is going where you said it is, by the sewer treatment plant over by the footbridge, there's a lot of trees there. Are they going to be cut down for anything? I'd hate to see that to happen. Also, since there is a dog park, a very nice one, just north of the city across the drainage ditch, I don't know why we even need one here. Because people are going to use cars to get to it anyway. I don't think anybody living way on the other side of Jersey Village from me, because I live on Argentina Street, which have a beltway in my backyard. They're going to drive to that anyway, so they could drive just a little further and go to the really nice one that's already there. Then a question of parking. There's not much parking space there. And does that mean that additional parking space is going to have to be used? If so, where is it going to come from? You'd have to cut down some trees if you extend it into the park. And I'm just totally opposed to having any of the trees cut down. So, and then another thing which somebody mentioned, is there any possibility of this attracting wild animals? Because, you know, there's going to be a lot of biological things going on, pee and poop and stuff, and attract other animals. And we already know the coyote problem and some other things. I just don't see a need for this park anywhere in Jersey Village.
Thank you, Fanny. Michael and Anna Stembridge.
Hi, Michael Stembridge, 15422 Jersey. I'm here. I just want to thank Representative Rosenthal for coming. Thank you so much. And I want to start out by saying how completely thankful I am. You know, we're talking about a dog park, a curfew. I mean, I feel like let the homeschool kids come and go as they please, but that's not this topic, so that's not allowed. But I want to thank you all for everything that you've done to work so hard to get our bayou widened. The city manager, the council, the mayor, everyone, anybody I'm leaving out, because that's been needed to be done for like 5 decades. It's the nasty truth. And y'all are the first ones that stood up and told people when the Commissioner's Court was going to happen and went to Commissioner's Court and stuck up for us and did everything that you did, and it needs to be done. And I can't express how completely grateful my wife and I are for that bayou being widened. We're talking about a dog park, we're talking about a curfew, but that's a huge issue. That is just a gargantuan issue. Our home flooded in Francis Allison and Tax Day. We were somewhat worried about the pipes being enlarged on Capri, Wall Street, Crawford, and the E127 Wall Street Weir project because we're at the bottom or downstream of White Oak Bayou in Jersey Village in the floodway. We don't want to become the drain field again because of any new or additional water flowing down from upstream. We also heard that there may be buyouts going on across the bayou from us, as well as mitigation reconstructions, which are total FEMA teardowns and total redos right across the street from us within eye view. There are neighbors just across the street who live in floodplains and can qualify for new mitigation reconstructions or elevated houses with FEMA. But we cannot. We're prohibited from getting the same total redos simply because our homes are in the floodway, and FEMA doesn't allow it. This seems honestly unconstitutional and unfair and unequal. I'm not just here to represent myself and my family, but all the families on East Jersey living in the floodway who unconstitutionally cannot get redos like those right across the street from them. This is not fair and equal, I feel, and I realize it may be a federal issue as well. The mayor and the city council had a plan of elevations. No buyouts were allowed, and they told us that we were on the list of the 60-some elevations. Then at an elevations meeting, they said that there'd be elevations in 3 orderly phases. We were told we would be in second phase and not first phase. We kept optimistic and supportive. The first round of 18 homes has or either is going to be accepted by FEMA, but and then the flood bond subsidized E127, and we don't know our status as far as what we had, our promised home elevation. My question is, our question is, what happened to the other 40-plus something home elevations promised flooding residents in phases 2 and 3? Why are East Rise Drive floodway dwelling flooders who need the elevations most not being told something about the status of them? We just need to know something. I spoke to someone at the flood district when I inquired how much the bayou would be widened, and they said 30 feet on each side. We want it widened as widely and as deep as humanly possible, especially with additional drainage water flowing downstream to us from widening Wall Street Weir or E127 with flood bond money that will be taxed for, and the other drainage improvements. We want our fair and equal mitigation, reconstruction, or elevation that we were promised. We cannot support a dog park location that would in any way, shape, or form prevent or hamper the complete widening of White Oak Bayou running through JV. The flood district could find they have to temporarily remove the pedestrian bridge across the bayou to widen it. How would access be gained, to parking and the dog park and everything? The Army Corps of Engineers will need to widen at least 30 feet on each side, and if a dog park is built, that could prevent full widening and create a bottleneck effect or prevent the current bottleneck from being widened and gotten rid of. My reason for kind of not being for this location is that we need to see assurance. We just need to see assurance that the dog park and the pedestrian bridge would in no way disrupt or prevent the total and complete bayou widening. We also need to know why the home elevations process went from a phased 3 phases to kind of a pick and choose one. And we were told, no buyouts, that was the rule. And now we hear some are getting them. So, we were told that we could get a mitigation reconstruction if we got out of the floodway and if we were in the floodplain, but they don't know how many years that could take. We want our home elevation, and we're neutral on the dog park, but we don't want a dog park at Ecuador if it's going to in any way hamper the bayou widening. In closing, we stand in strong support of our city, our mayor, our city council, our city manager, and our city staff. Thank you again for your awesome flood mitigation service to us as your constituents. And we just don't want a dog park if it extends into the bayou, so it doesn't in any way limit crucial bayou widening that's been needed for decades now.
Thank you, Michael. That's time.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. George McClure.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm George McClure, 7802 Hamilton Circle. And I'm here, I would like to discuss regular agenda item number 6, the dog park. First, let me say, I don't have a dog in this hunt. In fact, I don't have a dog at all. And I'm not here to discuss the wisdom of one side over the other or anything like that. My comments are more about process than anything else. We're blessed in America to have almost everywhere representative democracy. That's certainly what this represents. You are our elected representatives. We are your constituents. And as such, we grant you the authority to govern for us. We can't get together and vote on every single issue. We don't expect to. This is an example like that. When it comes to the dog parks, you didn't need to get a vote of the citizens. You didn't seek that per se. And so, we understand that and we respect that. Now, let me just take it aside for a second. We just saw a big national election. A lot of good, very worthwhile men and women were handed their seats because they ran for office 2 years ago saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, we promised this, we promised that, I'm going to vote for this, I'm going to vote for that. And they went to Washington and they didn't all do it. And that's what happens in a constitutional democracy when they don't do it, because to us, their constituents, it felt like betrayal. And that's the result of betrayal, and it's not good for anybody. We end up with people that don't necessarily represent our views at all. And that's a catastrophe. Now, in this instance, you, I think, wisely sought input from the citizens to where this dog park should be located. It was a controversial issue like many. And the citizens spoke, and about 75% picked one location over another. And I know that things have changed, but at least I have not heard anything officially about anything that's happened. I've heard rumors about changes because of extra costs and other roadblocks and whatever. But all I know is now it's on the agenda for passage that we're going to place the dog park in the Philippine Park. And I don't care. I don't really favor one location over the other. But all I would ask you, or all I would say to you, is that to make a change like that after seeking public input and then to go the other direction feels like betrayal. And I would just implore you not to betray us. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Marilee Beasley.
Hi, I'm Marilee Beasley. I live at 14910 Lakeview Drive. I used to live at 15534 Congo Lane, across the street from Jersey Village High School. Dear residents of Jersey Village, the purpose of my presentation is to inform you of my survey results for mail-in ballots for the City Council election of May 5th, 2018. I was concerned about the outcome of the May 5th election. I sent out surveys to a very large sample of those voters. Several voters sent the surveys back indicating that they had never applied for mail-in ballots. It turns out that 3 of those voters had ballots turned in for them. Somebody voted for them. And one of them was my neighbor on the lake. He said he went up there to vote and he was unable because somebody had sent in a mail-in ballot in his name. This is a very serious finding of our election process in Jersey Village. I sent this information on to the State of Texas Election Division. Also, I informed the City Secretary of Jersey Village to please store all ballots for at least 22 months as the state of Texas requires while this election is under investigation. Please feel free to contact the Election Division for verification of what I'm telling you. In addition, as I stated in an earlier presentation, that was in May, I was going to contact the FBI regarding the unauthorized use of my email by Councilman Bobby Warren, who contacted me. I was fairly certain I never gave him my email. I did visit the FBI office near us to discuss these matters with him, and I need to do further follow-up regarding his action as they referred me to the Cybersecurity Division. Also note that there are new guidelines being implemented with these kinds of issues. You can refer to the General Data Protection Regulations for general information. In addition to these troubling findings, an Election Day poll watcher noted that there were infractions on May 5th election days. These infractions were also reported to the State of Texas Election Division. At this point in time, I'm very concerned about the integrity of our voting process in Jersey Village. We use a ballot box to vote that has a very large slot in it. I don't understand why we are not renting voting equipment from Harris County. I know that there are problems with any method. I do think that ballot boxes that have a large slot in them may invite problems. Also, I have spent over $2,000 of my own money to investigate this election. I have purchased stamps. I have also done PIRs, including one to obtain Mr. James Singleton's file, and I had a lot of problems obtaining his file. I asked for the internal investigation report because he used to work for the Jersey Village Police Department, and I was unable to obtain that. I even hired a political consultant to help me. And then I found out that Mr. Singleton was in a very serious Jersey Village, while on duty, he was in a Jersey Village Police Department vehicle. He was not wearing his seatbelt and ran into a utility pole. If he were in the military, my understanding is he would be facing a court-martial for that. I never saw anything to indicate that he received a citation for that. He also had to go to the ER for evaluation for his hand, arm, and his eye. And I'm very concerned about that he was doing that while on duty. I'm also concerned because it appeared to me that the file had been sanitized, that there were things that weren't missing. Now, I also want to mention that I'm very opposed to the dog park. And the reason I'm opposed to it, and I had spoken about this already, is I'm a registered nurse and I did more research. And I have a handout here in this information about that. It's from the American Veterinary Medical Association. There are many disease risks for people at dog parks and other social events. You can receive dog bites, cryptoporidiosis, echinocosis, external parasites, hookworms, roundworms, fungal infections, mosquito-borne diseases, tick-borne diseases, and so forth. I'm also concerned about the reinstallation of red light cameras. My understanding is that the city of Houston no longer has its red uses red light cameras, and I believe that the legislature of the state of Texas is considering abolishing the use of red light cameras. So I would encourage our city to hold off for now looking at the red light cameras. Also, one more time, I want to mention that I'm very concerned about the purchase of the land that was across the highway. It's known as Jersey Crossing. It seems to me that it does not make sense that our city council approved to pay $5.2 million of that when the HCAT assessment was only $2.8 million, and twice I've asked for the PIRs that have to do with the hazardous chemical studies, the environmental impact studies, any EPA violations, OSHA violations, and so forth. And there are still no studies.
It's time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Nancy Yetter. Jean Gant.
Mayor, City Council, thank you for this time. I won't belabor the deal about the dog park, but I do want to thank you for putting the police over on Philippine, because they have been radar and doing a wonderful job, because Philippine is a raceway. There's no doubt about it. And love living here. We've been trying to sell and move back in Jersey Village, but the dog park's not going to work for us people that live off Philippine, because, you know, every now and then there's people parked on the street, and God help you if you don't back your van in the morning, you know, with school traffic, and they can't help that. Everybody's going to school. But it's dangerous. I've been hit once, not in this van I have, but the last one. The guy just made the corner from, what's it called, Zionist? I mean, I was halfway on the street and nailed me. So the dog park, you know, is just not going to work. The traffic, the parking, it's just dangerous for us, you know, on Philippine. And again, I thank God that the police have been hiding in the burned out house now, and they can park parallel, that they can catch them. But last time I was here, we had a map back over here, and everybody kind of voted to put it over here by the golf course, and that's where we thought it was left. So I'm going to do everything I can to prevent it from Philippine for a safety issue. And you being the police, and you being the police, Philippine is just dangerous. Thank you for this time.
Mark Malloy.
My name's Mark Malloy, and I live at 7803 Hamilton Circle, and I was a past city council member for the city of Jersey Village. And you know what I do every time I come up here to talk to the city government is I always read this information every time I come up here and talk. And I always say, Mark Malloy, 7803 Hamilton Circle, past city council member of the city of Jersey Village, Texas, citizens' comments for the 11/19/2018 city council meeting. Please make my verbal comments and documents given to the city secretary a permanent record of this meeting. The reason that I say that every time I come up here is because I've had discussions with the city secretary on what the city's rules or requirements or whatever they are on keeping the citizens' written and verbal information permanent record of the meeting. And what she told me was that what the rules are is that they can only keep them, they have the opportunity to only keep them for 90 days. But what she said is that they go ahead and they keep them for 2 years. But what I'm saying is they need to be permanent records. Okay, so anyway, the main reason I'm up here this time, and I come up here a lot of times, and I think a lot of these city council members probably think I'm a big pain in the ass and probably don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, what I'm here for tonight is on the dog park issue. And I'm going to talk about the history of the dog park. And what happens is the citizens of Jersey Village, they get very few times where the city government asks them to make a decision. Okay, so what they did is they took and they allowed the citizens to have two options on where they would allow the city dog park to be located at. And so what they did is they took and they notified the citizens many times. And then they notified them that they were going to have a meeting and they were going to take and let the, at that time, parks director, at that time, not the one that's here now, make a presentation to let the citizens know, you know, about the options and the way that the park would be built and all that. So anyway, after they had the presentation, they took and they allowed the citizens that attended the meeting to take a little adhesive dot and place it on the location that they wanted the dog park to be built at. And so then that meeting was over and the city went ahead and said, okay, we're going to give the citizens of the city of Jersey Village additional time to make more comments about where they want the dog park. And so what they did is they had on the city's website, they had an area that they allowed citizens to take and access and make comments. So after all of that was done, the results that came from all of that was that the citizens that were allowed to participate in voting where the dog park should be located, it was 70% that wanted it at the 43-acre detention basin north of Jersey Meadows Golf Course. So anyway, you know, the city council took and they decided, they said, okay, well, we're going to go along with the citizens and we're going to take and vote as a government body to make the decision on where the dog park was going to be located. And that was at the 43-acre detention basin. So anyway, then all of these people that took time to come to this meeting, that they were allowed to make a decision where they wanted the dog park located, now are finding out without really hardly any prior notice that the city is now going to consider moving the dog park location to an area where they said they don't want it. So anyway, you know, there's a lot of things.
Mark, it's time.
Okay.
Next card is John Bockham.
Thank you. I wasn't really planning on speaking again, but I noticed a couple items on the agenda that I wanted to come up and say a few words. First are the red light cameras. I'm against red light cameras, again, for many of the same reasons that I'm against the curfew ordinance. Studies have shown that while they might change the angle of the crash and reduce T-bone type accidents, they don't necessarily reduce the number of crashes. And you might also have not necessarily a decrease in the T-bone crashes because of people trying to speed through the light before they get captured by the camera to get a ticket. Lots of cities and camera operating companies have actually come under scrutiny, and several of them have lost court cases where you have short yellows, you have manipulation of the cycle by the city or the camera company, so not accusing JV of nefarious operations, but it certainly has been the case in other parts of the country, and we'd hate to see either the city or whoever's operating these cameras on the city's behalf do that. And as I mentioned, they're possibly unconstitutional as well. Governor Abbott has recently indicated that he would like to see a state law preempting the use of red light cameras throughout the state. So I would advise you not to put the cameras up if the governor might be, you know, through this next legislative session about to start passing a law that's going to pull them right back down. On the dog park issue, I'm a new resident, so this was something that was new to me. I'm generally a fan of dogs. I have two myself. My wife works with a rescue organization, so we typically foster, and we do spend quite a bit of time at dog parks. The comment I wanted to make here is if 75% of the residents that had an option chose the detention basin and their section option was in another place, I think that the results might be different if you say option one, which was their favorite option, is not in fact an option. Possibly this place on Philippine wouldn't have been the preferred location by most residents in Jersey Village. But despite that, I think with the amount of public outcry, if you will, on this issue, I would recommend postponing the relocation of the dog park until you've had an opportunity for additional feedback from the community. One thing I forgot to mention on the red light cameras is, you know, they say that they're there to save lives, but according to the data that's on the website for the City of Jersey Village, I believe there have been 0 fatal crashes prior, during, or since the red light cameras were taken down. And one last comment on the curfew. I'm disappointed in the vote. I did want to say that since adults in their 40s and 50s are more likely than juveniles to commit crime, maybe we should amend the curfew to keep them locked inside their house during curfew hours as well. We do put our trust in you as our representatives, as the gentleman mentioned, through a representative democracy, and we have an opportunity through elections to remedy that as we see fit when you don't make good decisions. So thank you very much.
Rod Erskine.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I'm Rod Erskine, 32 Parkway Place. First, I want to say thank you for attending Representative Rosenthal. I was on the City Council for 6 years. I saw your predecessor once at one of our meetings. I'm up here to talk about red light cameras. I have a different perspective than the two speakers who spoke prior. Specifically, I'm referring to item 4 on the regular agenda, which is Resolution 2018-76. I would urge you to pass that and move forward with the red light cameras. The City of Jersey Village is not the rest of Texas or the United States. When I was on City Council and post-City Council supporting the red light cameras during the referendum during the May 2016 election, while data from other cities may show different facts, the data available from our police department shows that the red light cameras actually did reduce both the number of traffic incidents as far as car crashes as well as injuries resulting from those crashes. I've sent all of you council members the package that Curtis Haverty and I put together with the data that we got from the police department through, that was either public data or PIR request. The program, as you know, was implemented in 2009 following an engineering study, and almost immediately upon placement of the cameras, the accidents and incidents at the 9 red lights where they were posted dropped down, varied from year to year, but one year they were down to 1/3 of what they had been prior to implementation. As construction on 290 proceeded, we had to start to phase out cameras, and so starting with 2014, the accidents increased. And at least as of May 2016, which was the last data I looked at, we were approaching the accident rate that we had prior to the program being implemented. To me, we are surrounded by 3 very busy streets: Jones Road, 290 Feeder Road, and Westbelt Feeder Road, with a lot of traffic that doesn't live in Jersey Village. You sit out there and you can watch and you can see people run those lights yourself. I think that a lot of people think that running a red light is somewhat of a trivial issue, but it's an issue that can have fatal consequences and or serious physical damage to a person and their property. I think that it's important, the aspect of the red light camera that's also important is we collect revenue from it. Unlike a lot of people who break the law, this revenue goes by law to public safety. And the City of Jersey Village collected that revenue and used that money for the police department to implement public safety programs within the City of Jersey Village. So between the cameras and the reduction of accidents that we see locally here in Jersey Village, as well as the funds that are used for the police department, to me, this is a big public safety issue for us and our families, as well as the visitors that come to Jersey Village. Question about support in Jersey Village. Other places like City of Houston voted red light cameras out. We had a referendum. We had over 500 signatures on a petition that was submitted to the city prior to the May 2016 election, putting red light cameras, 2 ordinances on the ballot. I examined those petitions and noted that of the 144 pages turned in, of petition signatures. 137 of those were signed and collected by people who didn't live in Jersey Village, suggesting that these people were coming into Jersey Village and trying to put their political agenda in our neighborhood. During the election, 675 people voted in support of red light cameras, almost a 2-to-1 ratio. If you're wondering about public support today, I look at that statistic and think most of those people probably still live here. Most of them probably still support public safety. They may not be up here speaking, and I know there are people that oppose them. But I think there's a lot of support for it here in Jersey Village. I've talked to a number of people who have run the red light cameras here in Jersey Village when they were in place. I'm yet to come across anybody that told me that after looking at the video that they thought they didn't run the camera or run the red light. So the message is real clear. If you don't want to get ticketed and you want the cameras to go away if they're re-implemented, just don't run the red light, because that's a personal decision.
Time, Rod.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rod. Bellary Torres.
Hello, how are y'all? Hi, I'm Bellary Torres. I live at 7819 Ecuador. I've been living here for about, my son's 23. I would say about 18 years. I got flooded in 2000 during the tax flood. I think it was 14. 16? Oh, thank you. Sorry. Yeah. And I just want to say I'm not in favor of the dog park because I literally live on Ecuador Street, and I literally can't get out of my street in the morning. Like, maybe if I get up a little bit early, like at 5:30 or 6, I couldn't get out of there. But like at 6:30 or 7, forget about it. They won't even like let me cross over, you know. And it's just imagine. And then our streets like always flooded, like when we get a little bit of rain, and then. You know, I'm sometimes there alone with my son. I would hate for that dog park to be there because I would just attract like pedophiles, strangers, you know, and people just parking on my street there that I don't even see there. Like normally I call the cops, like, hey, this car's been parked here like a long time, and they just been sitting there. Like it's kind of weird, you know, not to be like a nosy neighbor like that, but I'm just saying, like, you know, like I'm just concerned, like, you know, what if I have stuff out there now? It's just like, you know, everything, my garage is open, and what if they come get my stuff out of my garage and stuff, like they're in front of my house or something, you know, like, it's just like concerning to me like that. And then my son out there playing basketball and stuff, and you know, and the daycare kids, I do see they do have field day where they do go to Post and the pool and stuff like that. You know, that just concerns me and everything like that. So I don't know, that's just what I have to say about that. I'm not in favor of it. I did come to vote, and I thought we were going to do it at that other location. I didn't come across of it being across the street from my house, and there's literally no lights on my street. Like everybody else has little black lights. We have none, like zero. And there's not enough lights there, nothing like that. It's just, I don't know. I'm just not opposed of the dog park being there. It just concerns me since I am a resident there. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Bellary. Have any more citizen comment cards? We'll go directly into city manager's report. City manager, please.
Mayor and councilors, the report is in front of you tonight, and staff is happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for staff? All right, seeing none, move direct into consent agenda. Does any member of the council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it into the regular agenda? Seeing none, looking for a consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's been a motion, second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, any abstentions, motion carries. Moves right into item H, regular agenda. Consider resolution number 2018-75, approving the outside service agents funding policy and application. City Manager Austin, please.
Mayor and councilors, as part of the budget meetings, the council allocated $10,000 towards grants for outside service agencies. Staff has created a policy that establishes the goals the council expressed, which includes providing funding in the form of grants to nonprofit outside service organizations and agencies which are located in Jersey Village, which provide specific services and programs that support at least one of the following service objectives of the city: providing a vital social service that is not duplicated by other organizations in the community, provides a service or program that is better delivered by the public service agency or organization rather than the city government, and provides a needed cultural or arts amenity to the public that is not duplicated in the community. The Texas Constitution, state statutes, and federal regulations establish clear standards for the use of public funds. The standards require cities to spend taxpayer money for public purposes and prohibit the use of public money for private purposes. So the application of this mandate for the purposes of this policy will be accomplished on the basis that the city will fund those agencies and programs that fully meet the requirements of the policy. Every agency must serve a public purpose by delivering services that the city government could provide itself, but chooses to deliver the services through a nonprofit entity. The policy and application process has been designed to ensure the funding meets those requirements, and under the proposed policy, the city manager would assemble a review committee to review all applications. The manager would have authority to approve or deny the funding request and to enter into necessary agreements with the agency to ensure the essential public purpose and policy functions are met. City manager would report that to the council within 30 days of any funding approval, the name of the agency receiving the funding and the amount received. So the full policy and the application are included in the packet for council review. If the council is in favor of this, the recommended approving Resolution 2875, approving the outside service agency funding policy and application.
All right, any questions for Austin from council? Let me jump in. I got a few questions real quick here, Austin. So, just a little bit of background for everybody in attendance. Basically, what we're looking at this evening is, the city wanted to look at a way in which we can provide support and grants for outside groups that have provide a public need for the city. In order to do so, we wanted to put together an actual policy procedures to follow, and that's what we have before us this evening. The grant amounts that we're looking for budgeting in every year is $10,000. Is that correct?
That's the amount that the council budgeted this year, correct?
Is this something that could be? Are we looking at this being a one $10,000 grant to an organization, or could this be split up into several different payments?
This could be split up, however, depending on what organizations apply and ask for how much.
Okay. Any questions for Austin?
Yeah. First question, I read it. It seems to be very thorough, very well thought out, but I'm not an expert on any of this. The source of this policy, did you get it from other municipalities, or is this something that we dreamed up?
We borrowed it from a few other municipalities, took the best from everybody's.
Okay, well, that's what I wanted to hear. The other thing is the selection process. I mean, if you grant the full $10,000 to the first organization comes along, there's nothing left to grant to anybody else. Is this something that is going to be advertised at the beginning of each budget year, or so that everybody can get their applications in and be weighed against each other, or how's this going to be handled?
We would definitely be advertising it on an annual basis, sometime the latter part of a calendar year, the first part of the next calendar year. And then making sure that everybody's aware of it as best we can through the JV Star and those types of things. And we would have deadlines and timelines built into it so that you have to apply by a certain point in time.
Okay, I'm good.
Councilmember, the amount that you set aside in the budget process can vary. And of course, should you decide that you'd like to change the amount available for the grants.
In other words, if somebody, if a full 10,000 has been granted based on what we allocated in the budget, if somebody else came along later in the year and wanted some, we could allocate more.
Any other questions for staff? All right, looking for a motion on the resolution.
I move we approve Resolution 2018-75.
I'll second.
There's been a motion, second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 2, consider ordinance number 2018-24, amending the Jersey Village Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 6 Alcoholic Beverages, Article 2 Liquor Permit, Section 6-43 Application, 6-45 Fees, 6-46 Issuance and Contents, and 6-48 Constitutes Personal Privilege, Expiration amending Article 3 Beer License at Section 6-84 Application, 6-86 Classes, Fees Prescribed, 6-87 Issuance, Contents, 6-89 Terms Renewal, 6-90 Assignment, Sale under execution, transfer to another location, and 6-91 refund of fees for the purpose of revising provisions affected by legislative amendments to the Texas Alcoholic Beverage Code, providing for the codification and renumbering of the revised sections, providing for severability, and providing for a penalty in the amount not to exceed $2,000 for each day of the violation and any provision hereof. City Secretary Laura Cootie.
Yes, Mayor. This item is to amend the Alcoholic Beverage Code to bring it in line with the state process. Currently, our code requires that vendors or businesses selling alcoholic beverages, that they renew their permits on an annual basis, and that it be on a calendar year basis from January 1 through December 31st. After we had this in practice for many years, the state came along and they amended their code, and they went from a 1-year issuance of permits to a 2-year issuance of permits. And the state alcoholic beverage permits are issued on an application date, say from May 1 through April 30th. So it kind of throws the city's practice off and the process off, and it becomes very complicated and convoluted. These amendments will change the change the permits for the city issuances to go in line with what the state is, 2 years by application date.
All right, any questions for Lori or staff?
Laura, I know this sounds like, oh, we're just amending to come in line with the state, but this took you a lot of work, and thank you for all the time you spent going through and getting it right.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, looking for a motion on the ordinance.
I'll move we approve ordinance number 2018-24.
Second.
It's been a motion second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. 1 abstention. Item 3, ordinance number 2018-25, amending the general fund budget for the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2018, ending September 30th, 2019, by increasing line item 01-12-6570, land acquisition, the amount not to exceed $5,183,704 for the purchase of approximately 23.34 acres of land southeast of US 290 on either side of Jones Road in Jersey Village, Texas, from Jones Road Holding Limited, pursuant to an agreement to settle the claims asserted of the Jones Road Holding Limited in cause number 1061305, Jones Road Holding Limited versus City of Jersey Village, Texas, County Civil Court at Law 2, Isabel Cato, Director of Finance.
Yes, Mayor. On August 6, 2018, City Council approved Ordinance 2018-15 in order to pay for the land acquisition. Unfortunately, we were not able to close the deal before the end of fiscal year 17-18. We closed on October 2nd, which fell on the new fiscal year 18-19. So that's why we're coming to request for the budget amendment to amend the budget of 18-19 and appropriate those funds into that line item.
Thank you, Isabel. Any questions from staff to Isabel? Excuse me, questions from council to staff or Isabel? Okay, seeing none, looking for a motion on the ordinance.
I'll move we approve ordinance number 2018-25.
I'll second.
There's been a motion, seconds, or any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 4, consider resolution number 2018-76, receiving the traffic engineering study in connection with the reactivation of the red light camera program and authorizing the city manager to proceed with installation of the cameras at the locations analyzed by the study. Eric Forrester, Chief of Police.
Mayor, Council, I would like to, real briefly, these slides did not work out very well. There's some resolution with the camera, but I'm just going to fast forward to the very last one. We bring before you the red light camera system again. Our request is to move forward with the recommended placement of the red light camera system as it was prior to construction of US 290. In your packets, there is we re-engineered all of the intersections. And I want to point out we didn't have to do that. We merely suspended the contract. We could have just put the cameras back up and kept going. The city and the manager and I met. We felt it would be better if we re-engineered. The sight lines have changed. The road surface has changed. We have a different road out there. And we went back, and you authorized the money. We redid the studies. Each and every intersection, they came back and said we needed, or it would benefit to have red light cameras. And I want to point out one thing that was very interesting. John had spoke about earlier about the yellow light manipulation. If you go back and you look at, if you just go to the conclusion of each intersection study, and you look at what the conclusion says for each intersection, they talk about extending the yellow light, extending this, putting up signage, and so on and so forth. So it's not just a catch-all, the red light camera goes on from there, but they talk about other things that will help bolster safety at those intersections. But again, I could stand up here and talk all night, but we have, you know, over 400 pages of engineering studies there, and I'm not a traffic engineer. But we did go by the conclusions. We re-engineered every intersection, and I believe it's a safety issue, and I'd like to move forward with that, authorizing the city manager to move forward.
All right, any questions for staff or chief?
Chief, I am intrigued by engineering, and I did read the 400 pages, and I was quite impressed with the conclusiveness, and there were several times that they said, we're going to have to extend the yellow, or this warning sign, or the trees need to be cut so you can see the light.
Yes.
And it was very, very well done.
I think but upon us to, when you're talking about safety issues, is look at it holistically. And I think this engineering firm did that and looked at it, would benefit us greatly all the way across the board, because it is our citizens that we're worried about. And I think they did a great job. And I wanted to point that out because it all works together. And I think they did a good job highlighting that.
Any other questions for Chief?
Chief, in terms of the yellows, we don't control those, do we? We would have to make a request to TxDOT?
We can make a request for that. The engineers that I've talked to is that's going to happen anyway, but we'll monitor that to make sure it does happen. But the newer intersections, that's kind of what they're doing. That's the model they're following. They realized the yellows were too short. So I believe you're going to see that across the board, but we'll keep an eye on it and make sure it happens.
Okay, but where I was going with that is that really doesn't fall under the purview of the city.
Exactly.
It's a different agency that actually controls that. So all we can do is request and advocate for longer yellows, et cetera.
Yes, they've been pretty receptive so far on the changes we've asked for moving forward. Like all governmental bodies, sometimes it's a little slower than others.
Any other questions for Chief? Okay, very good. Looking for a motion on the resolution.
I'll move we approve resolution number 2018-76.
I'll second.
There's been a motion, seconds. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 5, consider ordinance number 2018-26, amending the Jersey Village Code of Ordinance at Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2, Section 2-142 to provide for revisions to the schedule of fees relating to the permits and other miscellaneous services, amending Chapter 14, Article 8, Section 14-532B relating to the expiration of permits. Director of Public Works, Kevin Hagerich.
A little background information. Historically, the city staff has done a comprehensive fee study every 3 years to make sure our fees are still in line and competitive with our neighboring communities. Another purpose of this study is to make sure that the costs are being charged to cover the costs of providing the service. The last time the study was completed was in 2013. In connection with the review, an extensive request for information on fees charged by other communities was made. The other cities include Bellier, LaPorte, Stafford, Friendswood, Tomball, Richmond, West University, Hedgewood Village, Seabrook, League City, Spring Valley Village, Webster, and Katy. Their information was received and reviewed in order to compare with these cities what they were charging versus what Jersey Village was currently charging. This item is to request revision of the Code of Ordinance that will update and increase the fees charged for certain services in order to bring these charges in line with the cost of providing the service. We're also proposing to add a section authorizing the city manager to waive permit fees for permits issued for repair, replacement, removal, and demolition or damaged property for up to 90 days in the event of a natural or man-made disaster, similar to what we had done in previous disasters. Staff recommends to approve ordinance number 2018-26, amending Jersey Village Code of Ordinances at Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 2, Section 2-142, to provide for revisions to the schedule of fees related to permits and other miscellaneous services, and amending Chapter 14, Article 13, Section 14-532, parenthetical B, to revise provisions relating to the expiration of permits.
All right, thank you, Kevin. So just for everybody in attendance, I know that's a lot of letters, numbers, sections, Roman numerals. In essence, what we're looking at this evening is that we went and did a comprehensive analysis of our fees, what we charge for various fees within the city to make sure that our fees are in line with similarly situated cities in the area. A couple of questions for Kevin, Christian, staff. It seems to me the majority of changes, or the bulk of the changes, took place in the areas for building permits. Walk me through that real quick, without going in, we don't have to go into super detail, but it looks like we did two things. One, we changed how it's structured, especially statutorily, the language. And two, I see we had some nominal, well, I wouldn't say nominal, but we did increase some of our building fees. Is that what I'm reading correctly here in this proposed change?
Yes, sir.
So, we did increase. So that was the majority of the changes were the building fees themselves. The rest of them I saw were some small fees raised from say $50 to $75. Is it safe to say that for the most part our fees were in line, but there were a couple of key areas in which we were in essence undercharging our fees compared to similarly situated cities?
Our fees were, yeah, we were undercharging. We were below the mean, below the median.
Okay.
Also, as Mr. Hagerich stated, we missed a fee cycle, if you will.
Okay, and just one last thought. I want to commend you guys for adding the section of waiving fees during a natural disaster. I know that especially during the flood situations, the need to repair, replace, remove, demolition, and getting it done fast is absolutely critical, and that we should authorize the city manager to do so for safety's sake and for expediency. So I'm in complete support of this waiver of fees during a natural disaster. But nonetheless, I want to go ahead and open it up for the rest of council comments.
Christian, with the 90 days, how was that decided on? I mean, I went through a mitigation effort in 2001 with Allison, but that's too far back for me to remember how long it took. So is 90 days reasonable, or?
I believe 90 days is reasonable. I think the genesis was with 2001 Tropical Storm Allison, and then City Council voted to rescind all fees after Hurricane Ike. Rather than waiting for council to convene, it's best that the city manager be the authorized agent to do so, and there are other cities who do so similarly. Austin, Texas, I believe. Austin, yes. And Austin can add anything to that.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Have we done any sort of analysis to determine whether, I don't know if currently, if our fees pretty much help to pay for all of the functions? In other words, is this all self-sustaining through the fees? Are we in any way through the general fund subsidizing these activities? I guess I want to get a sense of, does it make a profit? Is it a loss? This
is no disguised, and sorry to interrupt, this is not disguised taxation at all. This is to recoup the costs associated with what essentially is a private good, and you do so with user fees. I have worked with past cities who utilize user fees. Even if they didn't charge as much as they needed to, they did not provide the services required that they were charging for. And it would go into the general fund, and you'd never see an increase in staff, you'd never see an increase in training, and you would see inspections and plan review that were performed haphazardly. This, again, is an attempt to get us in line with other cities, but I'll actually admit that this is more than many other cities charge. We are quite thorough here. We do have our higher standards in regards to special flood hazard areas. There's a lot of additional work that's required, and we want to make sure the fees are commensurate with the amount of time that staff is putting in. There are some public goods related to, or merit goods related to reviewing plans thoroughly, safe housing, safe buildings, et cetera. So there's something akin to that. So we're actually not probably recouping everything that we invest, but we also want to invest in safe buildings, and we don't want substandard housing.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure it was clear that this is, we're just trying to ensure that it covers our costs and that we're not trying to make a profit off of this.
Christian, did you do any analysis on a comparable, for instance, a 2,000 square foot house under the old fee structure versus a 2,000 square foot house under the new fee structure?
We did. We essentially looked at, and it's not an apples to apples comparison. We took a $300,000 house. Let me get this over here. We took a David Weekley home in the Enclave. $300,000 home, 23,014 square feet. We were at $578.50 for a permit, and plan review is always typically 50% that we're looking to change this, 50% of the cost of a permit. That total is $867.75. After our fee changes and incorporating a zoning review, and we know how important zoning reviews are and how long they might take, and we want to make sure we get our setbacks correct and everything else, we've got a total for a similar home, $2,120. That's a substantial increase. There's a lot of work. Let me go to a $500,000 home. Let's say that there's a custom home. Essentially went from about $1,900, $2,000 to $3,300. There's a couple ways of looking at this. As you probably realize, driving around town, you can see custom homes, and they don't seem to be or appear to be moving too quickly as far as construction, and you might wonder why, and what is that building official doing to them? And then you have production homes like the Enclave with David Weekley. There seems to be a big learning curve with some of the custom builders that we see here. When it comes to production builders, after you get through your first 5 or 10, it goes like clockwork. The production builders tend to be a little more complicated in their plans because they're value engineered, and they take a lot of time to review and a lot of time to inspect until it becomes old hat. The custom builders, quite often staff feels like we're the general contractor. We're telling them what to do next, and we shouldn't be. That's not something we should be subsidizing, but that ends up happening. We're trying to recoup some of those costs. I don't think this increase is going to result in somebody who's going to build a $700,000 house and balking and walking away.
How many, so make sure I understand the process. Somebody files for a permit, they pay that fee, then they pay for a plan review fee, which includes all the inspections associated with that building permit. Is that correct?
It includes first and foremost a plan review. And it should reflect all the costs associated with inspections.
On a typical home, how many inspections would you do?
I wish I had the permit clerk here for that. We've actually, because our ordinances and the codes have become so complicated, what used to be included, say, under a building final now has a separate phase. There's the elevation certificate phase, and you're looking at a topographical survey, and you're looking at base flood, and you're looking at the design flood elevation or freeboard, and you're looking at highest adjacent grade, and you're looking at lowest adjacent grade, and you're looking at the required engineered civil drainage design, and you're looking at FEMA's building diagram number. They have 1 through 9, but there are 2 number 1s and 2 number 2s and 2 number 3s, different types of slab on grade. The surveyor gets it incorrect. So there I am with one component, or there the inspector is with one component of a building final, which used to be under building final, that has just taken me 18 minutes, and now I need to tell them why they need to give me a new elevation certificate that shows a building diagram number of 8 and not number 6 like you see on the beach. And that's just the elevation certificate. Now we got to go through the landscaping. There's a lot to it. We have preliminary development meetings. I often hold impromptu meetings in the front lobby. Then I like to have a development meeting as well. Even after all the meetings, and particularly maybe for the non-production builders where I can really talk to their design team and the corporate office, we've created builders packets. I'll have the meetings. I give them this. and, you know, choose one of the below as to how you're complying with the energy code or whatever else. We've been over it all, and they choose something, and then I ask them a question. They really don't understand what they're doing. I pay the designer for that, I might say, if it's the builder I'm talking to. But you've got to build it. You've got to know how to read the plans. So it's essentially just staff's time trying to recoup that. We're also looking to raise reinspection fees. Quite often we're relied on to punch out the work, and that shouldn't be the case. I'm not sure a second reinspection failing and an additional $25 in the form of $75 is going to make much of a difference, but we'll see. Other fees are to just keep a pace of technology. You'll see photovoltaic, solar water heating, etc.
Any other questions for Christian? Thanks, Christian.
Yes, sir.
Looking for a motion on the ordinance.
I move we approve ordinance number 2018-26.
I'll second.
There's been a motion, second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, any abstentions, motion carries. Item 6, consider resolution number 2018-77 locating the dog park at Philippine Park location and authorizing the city manager to negotiate and enter an agreement with the White Oak Bayou Joint Powers Board concerning the extension of the dog park into their property. Jason Alfaro, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. In June of 2017, City Council approved staff to proceed with design and construction of a dog park facility on the Harris County Retention Pond property. In March and April of 2018, staff had discussions with Harris County Flood Control District in order to determine the types of documentation needed to move the project forward. Staff submitted the documents and proceeded to receive quotes from the contractors for fence construction. Staff secured a fence contractor by May, and we informed the county that we were ready to start the project. We were then advised to seek approval from another division within the county. After discussions with flood control, the city was informed that city staff needed to submit construction documents for approval from the watershed division within the flood control. City staff then submitted documents to the county to obtain a permit for the construction of the dog park. After the permit review process was completed, we then received requests for additional documents that required engineering services. Our engineer met with the county and afterwards submitted a quote for the scope of work needed to complete the project. The quotes were significantly higher than anticipated and more than the budget allowed, coming in at roughly $20,000. After receiving this information, staff felt that placing the dog park at a different location would be beneficial to the project. We reviewed the public input comments and found that Philippine location as the next best site. However, locating the dog park at the Philippine Park location would result in the park extending into the White Oak Bayou Joint Powers Board's property, requiring the need for formal agreement with that board prior to construction of the park. A recommended action, city staff recommends that the new dog park be located at Philippine Park location and that the city manager be authorized to negotiate and enter into an agreement with the White Oak Bayou Joint Powers Board concerning the extension of the dog park into their property.
Okay, thank you, Jason. I got a couple of questions right off the bat. So the reason that we're actually looking at moving it is because of an increased cost to do it at the detention pond. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that dollar amount was $20,000. That's the increased cost over the 50 for a total of $70,000.
Correct.
Okay. So let me just cut to the chase on my thoughts on this, and I'm going to open it up for council comments on this. Right. I consider the whole dog park concept to be important to the city, and I'll tell you why. The dog park alone is just one item. The pool alone is one item. The pavilion alone is one item. The golf course alone is one item. The new golf course clubhouse that we're going to be building is one item. But altogether, the Clark Henry Park, Carol Fox Park, whatever the case may be, right? But all of those things together create what we call a basket of amenities, and they all contribute to the quality of life of Jersey Village, and they also make us an attractive neighborhood. We need to continue to focus and put emphasis on the quality of life initiatives in our neighborhood that make it an attractive destination. We had a very thorough, comprehensive plan activity in which we went through all of the items that we want to implement into the city. As a matter of fact, you may have noticed all the new sign markers in Jersey Village. That is part of one of the comprehensive plans that we put together with new wayfinding, new entrances that are going to be installing in Jersey Village, because we're all very proud of our neighborhood. We want to demonstrate our pride in that neighborhood, and we also want to put emphasis on the basket of amenities that's going to make quality of life in Jersey Village very important. the dog park standalone is just one thing, but as a basket of amenities, I think it's important. And so I'm going to advocate that we continue to push forward with the creation of a dog park. With that being said, look, but I don't want to push for a dog park that a chunk of the neighborhood's going to hate. I'll just call it like it is. All right? So with that being said, I would like for us to discuss the potential of of moving forward with the dog park at the detention pond, even if it's going to cost us some more, because at the end of the day, it's going to contribute to that basket of amenities, and it's going to be a great feature for the neighborhood. And I wanted to open up to council for that particular discussion topic. That's just something I see, and I wanted to get everybody's thoughts on that.
Mayor, it's kind of peculiar because a dog park was an initiative, a citizen-led initiative through the comprehensive plan. So you have one group that says put a dog park, and you have another group that says no dog park, and it's just a freaking dog park. I agree. You know, there seems to be some controversy about the Philippine location, although my personal opinion is I think that's a better location because of the parking and the isolation. It's probably more conducive to what we're trying to do, but obviously there's a public outcry. So I would be probably more in favor of spending the extra money or even looking at an alternative site. And I had some questions about other areas off of Jersey Meadow Drive on the other side of Jersey Meadow, on the east side, that still may be under Harris County flood control. I don't know. The other is over off of the detention area over by Jersey Village High School off of Gulf Bank. I don't know if that's viable or not, but I think if we should step back and look at other locations, and if nothing else is suitable, then we go back and look at the 43-acre site.
Yeah, I think that one of the benefits when we did the town hall, or I forget, there's a fancier word that I'm sure Jason can remind us. I think it's a French word for trying to do a design meeting. You could probably remind us. What is it? Charrette. Yes, we did a charrette. I found that out at that meeting. But the benefit of doing the charrette was that citizens were able to be presented with several options and to choose from those. Now, I don't think that the charrette means that we have to charge ahead with the detention pond plan no matter what. Obviously, things can change, and they have changed. But I do think, to Greg's point, is that it would be a good idea to sort of step back, look at more options, because I don't think there's just an A and a B, and, you know, kind of think outside the box on this. You know, after talking to several citizens, one idea that came forward was reconsidering the size in order to minimize some of the impact. Another suggestion was to break up the all-dog and the small-dog dog park into two different locations if there was not enough contiguous land in order to support both. You know, we can look at some of these different ways of tackling the issue in order to try to alleviate some of these issues and in order to find the best solution and let citizens have a couple of more options under the current conditions. You know, that being said, I know there was some suggestions that maybe some council members didn't want their dog park near them. I am more than happy to jump on that grenade. So I live across from the Wellwind Dog Park. If y'all want to put the large dog park over there, my wife and my dog will be extremely happy. But that's just my suggestion.
Well, let me throw this out when we're talking about other locations. So when the previous director of Parks and Recreation and her team looked at I'm almost, you know, as I'm reflecting back on the whole process, I'm almost certain that they looked at a lot of the locations we would be looking at again if we were to have, say, another evaluation or say another town hall or request staff to look at again. I'm almost certain they looked at those locations, and it came back to the number one best location would be the preferable location was the detention pond, with the Philippine being the second location, right? I feel, you know, that I wouldn't call it a wasted exercise, but I feel like we would be duplicating our efforts if we went back and asked staff to reevaluate those locations again, because I'm almost certain we did initially. I feel that as of, you know, because again, we've gone through the comprehensive plan. We did actually a very thorough study. As a matter of fact, our previous director of Parks and Recreation has experience with dog parks. That was one of her things she worked on, and that she had on her resume is dog park expert, right? And so, and after her analysis, upon the detention pond as being the best location. So it's perfectly well within our, our ability to go ask to reevaluate those. I honestly think we have enough information to make a decision on that. I really do.
I agree. I remember being there and looking at all the options. They even looked at the volleyball court on Acapulco that's rarely used. My thing is, the residents on Ecuador there, they have a very valid concern of people pulling their street thinking they can get to the splash pad or the pool or the schools, and they don't really know that there's a dead end there, and then they have that awkward 5-point turnaround. People park down there, and I actually advocated for the city to put up those no parking signs, and thank goodness you guys did that, because they were actually parking at the very end and blocking that resident at the very end from getting out of her driveway. And I spoke to more residents for this, and I think there's a lesson to learn here as far as one thing I keep hearing is people keep turning down that street. If you want to take some notes, our wayfinding really needs to come into play here, especially on that street. And when those wayfinding, we have a plan coming up, and those are going to be implemented very soon. But make sure on that street, on Ecuador Street, there should be a sign there saying, school facilities are straight ahead, dog park straight ahead, pool straight ahead. So that way people aren't turning down that street when they shouldn't be and causing a headache there. During the fancy French word town hall, my dot went on this location because I burn in the moonlight, and so I literally like the shade there. I like the trees, but the citizens said, "Hey, let's do it at the golf course," and I agree with that. It is a good location. And that's the will of the citizens. The citizens during the comprehensive plan, I was on that committee. That was a highly sought after amenity, I campaigned on saying, "Hey, let's get a dog park," and people were pretty responsive to that. If you look at a lot of the HAR listings now, if you look on HAR and you look at homes for sale in Jersey Village, speaking to your basket of amenities, a lot of realtors are using photographs of the splash pad, of the pool, of the golf course, of our fire department, of our city hall. They're really starting to package these amenities into one of the major selling points of our village, which is it absolutely is. So I think this is an important component. I think it's been brought up a few times at the comprehensive plan town halls. There was another voting time. This was one of the highest ranked amenities along with the splash pad. So I think it's important to have. I think it's important also to listen to the citizens and put it at the golf course. If it costs an extra $20,000 to get this fence engineered properly, then let's go ahead and do that.
James, do you have anything? Gary?
Yeah. I haven't had the chance to go look at the next door poll and see if all the dogs have voted yet, if we want this or not. But I did see a lot of comments about how this was a city council thing. We wanted a dog park. Andrew, when we served on the citizen-led comprehensive planning committee, it was because of a bunch of the citizens came to an event and said, "We want a dog park." I know a lot of people.
True.
A lot of citizens, this is not any of us up here wanting a dog park. I don't own a dog. But it is a majority of the citizens that want it, and that's how it ended up in the comprehensive plan in the first place. Jason, you were right to bring this up. You're talking about a 40% increase in the budget. Good job bringing it up. I'm pretty sure we're not going to agree with you, and we're going to go put it back where it was, but it was right to bring it to us. You've got a 40% increase in budget. That's something we need to talk about.
Gary, do you have anything?
Yeah, I believe you mean it's 40% increase in a budget item. In the budget. Okay. Yeah, and I'll second.
Yeah, that needed to be clarified.
Jason,
Thank you,
I know
Councilman.
you've put a lot of effort into it, and the struggles you've had with the flood control district are just incredible. And I don't know, maybe you could impose on our new state representative to help you out a little bit with the flood control district on this. I mean, it's incredible the hurdle they put in front of you and what it's going to cost us, when I cannot see how this dog park would cause any kind of problem with that detention ditch over there. But it is what it is, and thank you for making the effort, but I think we got a dud here.
I think Harris County must be cat lovers.
Out of curiosity, I've talked a little bit to Austin about this. Did Jason, did they explain to you why they felt like they needed a professional engineer to stamp and certify and engineer out putting up some fence and some benches for dogs to run around in?
No, sir. Basically, it's their requirements. They're making everybody from any big project to a small project go through A to Z.
They said it was a state requirement, not a federal requirement?
Well, I didn't speak with them on that. I just talked with them about what was taking long in the process, and they're making everybody go A to Z with any type of project.
The answer is bureaucracy of government is the reason why.
I just wanted to make sure I know whose level of bureaucracy it was, in case someone in the back there could help us on that.
Let me pose a question to staff, Austin. So we have two items on this this evening. We have the resolution itself, which would authorize moving it to Philippine. The other ordinance is amending the general fund budget to $39,500. That is in essence because the original dollar amount was $50,000, which we had in previous budget. We utilized some of that in engineering and design already. Is that where's the difference between the 50 and the 39.5 that we're wanting to put in this year's budget?
That was securing the contractor.
Okay. So in other words, a portion of the funds we would have already spent have been spent. So the actual construction of the dog park itself, as of right now, is $39,500. If we were to move forward with Philippine, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, if say for instance, council wanted to go forward with the dog park at the detention pond, using my basic math here, if we were to add $20,000, if we were to amend ordinance 2018-27 to a total of $59,500, would that actually give the requisite funds to move forward with the detention pond construction?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Look, so the way I look at it again, I mean, my comments again, I want to move forward with the dog park. I want to move forward with it at the detention pond. And the way I see us let me just throw out that hypothetical. Is that something, just from an informal nodding of the heads or an informal comments that this is something that council would be supportive of?
One thing I want to be careful about, I think something we haven't discussed yet is it's not as if we tack another $20,000 on it and it's a done deal. It's $20,000 that we spend on engineering fees that then get submitted to the flood control district, which may or may not approve it. And so then we're back to square one after having spent $20,000 and gotten zero value for it.
Well, I'm pretty certain that I feel very confident that we could put together an engineering design that would actually pass muster.
I was pretty confident we'd have a dog park a year ago, but I mean, I want to make sure that we have our eyes wide open as we're making this decision.
Any other general comments on the proposal? Okay, then if that's the case, what I'm going to recommend council do is that we do not, item 6, resolution 2018-77 pass as a no vote, and then we amend 2018-27 to a total of $59,500. So with that, I'm going to call for a motion on the resolution 2018-77 locating the dog park at Philippine Park. No action on 7.7, and we would amend the dollar amount on 2.7. So right now, looking for a motion on resolution 2018-77.
I'll make that motion.
Mayor, I don't think we need to make a motion.
I'm going through the formal process of calling for the resolution. City council members, if they wish to make the motion. City Attorney.
Mayor, there's no need to call the item for action if the consensus is that you will not be considering that item.
But nonetheless, I want to state for the record that that item 6 did not pass because of lack of a motion. So therefore, that's in essence why I call for the motion. So nonetheless, I think I'm reading that item 6 fails because of lack of a motion. Therefore, we'll move into item 7. Consider ordinance number 2018-27, amending the general fund budget of the fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2018, under September 30th, 2019, in the amount not to exceed $39,500 to increase line item 0139-65-6516 parks and landscaping projects from the general fund balance to complete construction of the dog park. Jason Alfaro, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Alrighty. Due to the request of many residents, in 2016 and 17, City Council approved the funds for the construction of the dog park. However, the approval and the adoption of 2016-17 operating budget, the Parks Director resigned and the dog park project was never initiated during the budget year of 16-17. As a result, May 14, 2018, Council approved Ordinance 2018-10, reappropriating these funds on the same line item for the budget year 2017-18. Unfortunately, due to the problems with the chosen location, the project was not able to be completed in budget year 2017-18, and since the funds were never expended, the amount budgeted rolled into the general fund balance for fiscal year 17-18. So with this agenda item, staff is respectfully requesting the appropriation of $39,500 from fund balance into line item 01-39-6516 to complete construction of the dog park.
All right, any questions for Jason?
You're looking for two motions, I assume, correct? The amendment, then the motion? I think that'd be the cleanest way to do it.
Yes, it is the cleanest way to do it. So Councilman Zorn's question is, the number of motions that will be necessary. The cleanest way to do it is to, one, make a motion to change the proposed ordinance dollar amount, and then to actually make a motion on the ordinance with the changed dollar amount. Is that your understanding, Councilman? So with that being said, I'll open up the floor for a motion at this time.
I move to amend proposed ordinance number 2018-27 to change the dollar amount in section 2 from $39,500 to $59,500.
I'll second.
There's been a motion second. Is there any questions on the motion?
Yeah, is that the correct amount, Jason?
Yes, sir, with the 20,000 extra.
Well, I thought it was $20,000 above the 50,000 we approved before.
No, sir, we've already spent money securing the contractor, and so what's remaining is the $39,500. So if you were to add the 20 on top of that.
Okay.
Okay, so the motion to actually change the proposed ordinance dollar amount from $39,000 to $500. We are not making a motion on the ordinance itself at this time. So nonetheless, there has been a motion and seconds. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Therefore, we do have item 7, ordinance number 2018-27 with the amended amount of $59,500 before you on item 7. Looking for a motion on the revised ordinance at this time.
I move to approve ordinance number 2018-27.
Second.
There's been a motion and seconds. Any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Item 8, consider resolution number 2018-78 authorizing the city to apply for a grant from the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department in order to enhance the city's trail system. Jason Alfaro, Director of Parks and Recreation.
Mayor and Council, during the budget process, we identified trail connectivity opportunities near the retention pond area. There are many people who use Jersey Meadow Drive to exercise, and we currently do not have any trail or walking path along that roadway. We'd like to connect the Lakes of Jersey Village subdivision into the same trail system. Texas Parks and Wildlife administers the National Recreational Trails Fund in Texas under the approval of the Federal Highway Administration. And this federally funded program receives its funding from a portion of federal gas taxes paid on fuel used in non-highway recreational vehicles. These reimbursable grants can be up to 80% of project costs with a maximum of $200,000 for non-motorized trail grants and maximum award of up to $400,000 for motorized. Funds can be spent on both motorized and non-motorized recreational trail projects such as the construction of a new recreational trail, to improve existing trails, to develop trailheads or trailside facilities, and to acquire trail corridors. These funds were in the budget for this year, the $30,000, and we are asking to approve resolution 2018-78 authorizing the city to apply for a grant from TPWD in order to enhance the city's trail system.
All right, any questions for Jason?
Not to step in this one again, but does any part of this connected trail that we would look at doing, is any of that on Harris County Flood Control District land?
A small portion of it, yes. We can look at putting the sidewalk into somewhere near the right-of-way, just to have to talk with the Public Works Director about that, see where we can go.
Any other questions for Jason? Okay, looking for a motion on the resolution.
I move to approve resolution number 2018-78.
I'll second.
All right, there's been a motion and second. Is there any additional discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. That'll actually move us into mayor and council comments. We'll actually have an executive session after that. So let me go ahead and start. Councilman Wumenhorst, comments, observations, witty observances.
I have no comments.
Congratulations to Detective Limerick and excellent work on his case. Excellent work. Austin, I've been up here a short time period, and I think in the time period I've been here, yourself and 3 of your departments have gone for grants. While we sometimes get told no, we're actually out there asking. So I appreciate all the staff's work on going out and for grant money.
I want to congratulate my alumni at JV High School for advancing in the playoffs. And good luck to them Friday against Katy High School. Hopefully they prevail there and keep on going forward. I want to thank all the citizens who contacted us about the different issues that were coming up on the agenda. Shoot us an email if you ever want to. I know we're actually going to change our email addresses pretty soon, so it's not the real long amitchum@ci.jersey-village.tx.us. I've memorized that. It's going to be something a little more easy, so you can email us your comments, your concerns. Everyone who emailed me got a call back, so anytime you ever have any questions or concerns, just send us an email. We get a call back from most of us. So thanks for your involvement, and thanks for sticking around for this whole entire meeting.
Why don't we do this? We're about to adjourn here to an executive session. I would direct you to ask a couple of questions to our Director of Parks and Recreation, Jason Alfaro. He'll be able to give you much greater detail there in just 1 or 2 minutes, sir. Absolutely. Same thing. We're right in the middle of council comments. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think if you look at the bureaucratic hurdles that we have to jump through, we've got a $50,000 dog park that turned into a $70,000 dog park, with 43% of that turning into the bureaucratic process. So 43% of 70,000, and we have not stuck a shovel in the ground. I think that is part of the bureaucratic mess that perhaps Austin can help us with. But it is frustrating, not only from your perspective, but from the city council perspective as well, because these aren't things that we put in place. These are things that are put upon us. So anyways, that's it.
Speaking of bureaucratic mess, one thing I do want to say, and I think this kind of ties in both to what Greg is mentioning and what Andrew said earlier, I do want to thank all of the citizens who reached out reached out to us, whether by phone, by email, on Facebook, however they chose to reach out to us. That is by far the best way for us to be able to better understand your concerns, to get your input, to get a full sense of exactly what factors would go into our decision making. Probably the worst place to do it is when we're up here on the dais, because there's all sorts of state regulation regarding what we can and can't do, say and can't say, when we can say it. I mean, there's just... I encourage everyone, if you have not called one, if you have something that was concerning enough to you to come out here tonight and spend a perfectly good evening that you could be doing a lot of other things with, then I would encourage you to give us a call, to email us, to do whatever you need to do to reach out. I know that our email addresses are on the city website. Utilize that, because it is much easier for me, and I'm sure other members of council, to be able to sit down and have a conversation with you one-on-one to better understand your individual concerns and to kind of better explain where we're coming from.
I don't have much to say. I just want to thank staff, council. Thank you for your time this evening. Thank you, citizens, for your attendance this evening. A lot of good work done here tonight. We got more work ahead of us, so thank you very much for your attendance and all your contributions. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close this regular session and move directly into the executive session. City Council is now going to retire to a closed session at 9:26 p.m. pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087, Economic Development Negotiations in connections with the following items. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087, conduct deliberations regarding economic development negotiations in connection with Jersey Village Crossing. We'll return to open session and continue with the remainder of tonight's agenda after the closed session deliberations are concluded. The closed session was adjourned at 10:30 p.m. No official action or vote was conducted during the closed session. Item N, reconvene regular session to discuss and take appropriate action regarding items discussed in executive session concerning economic development negotiations in connection with Jersey Village Crossing, Austin Blease.
Mayor, there's no action needed.
No action this evening, therefore we will adjourn tonight's meeting. Meeting adjourned.